want to immediately congratulate Father John and Sister Carrie and the entire staff here, Father Gene and Father Jack, Deacon John, and all those who are involved in this wonderful enterprise. And a very special way, all the benefactors who are here as well. Not possible without all of you. What a great, great achievement this is for the Retreat House and for our diocese and far, far beyond. Also, I want to stand in admiration. At this time in our life of the church, in the last 3 years, we lost 4 retreat houses in our area. Holy Name Retreat House at Chambers Island, Mount Vernal in Appleton, the Capuchin's Place in Marathon, and St. Joe's and Bailey's Harbor. They just couldn't do it. But because of your dedication, your organization, your wonderful benefactors, you've pulled us off, and so congratulations. I was thinking this morning that you really shouldn't have a diocesan priest up here speaking. It should be a religious, either a Jesuit or today a Benedictine, but not a diocesan priest. So I decided last night to call 3 Jesuits to find out what I should say today. And the first person I called was St. Ignatius. Second person I called was Gerard Manley Hopkins. Then I called himself, Pope Francis. And they said, here's what you are to say tomorrow at this wonderful, wonderful retreat ministry. And St. Ignatius was kind of concise. He only gave me 13 words. He said, this is the foundation of the retreat ministry. Tell the people this. We come from God. We belong to God. We're going back to God. That's it. That's the foundation of our lives. We all know that all life, all existence comes from God. That everything that we have and are is total gift. We know deep down that we belong to God. Last Sunday at the Gospel, Jesus was back in his hometown. He was not appreciated. No prophet except in his hometown. But he's preaching in synagogue. We don't know what the message was. I think it was Psalm 100. Sing joyfully to the Lord, all you lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come into his presence, singing for joy. Know that the Lord is God. He made us. His we are. We belong to him. We are the sheep of his fold. There it is. Jesus preaching the Psalm 100. And St. Ignatius followed that great tradition. So I want to thank St. Ignatius this morning for that piece of advice. Gerard Manley Hopkins said that any major celebration, such as a dedication of a retreat house, anniversary, you should have a piece of poetry. And he said, I've got a poem for you tomorrow to recite. And what's that, Gerard? Gerard Manley Hopkins was a Jesuit priest. He only lived to 45 years. He died in 1889. But he's one of the great poets in our Catholic tradition. And he has a poem called Pied Beauty. The world is, that's in this one. Glory be to God for dapple things, for skies of couple color as a brinded cow, for rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire-coal chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscapes potted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow. In all the trades, gear and tackle and trim, all things counter original, spare strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift slow, sweet sour, a dazzle dim. He fathers forth, whose beauty is past change. Praise him. And Hopkins said that everything the Jesuits do begins with Ad Mariam Dei Gloriam, the glory of God. It concludes with Laus tibi Domine, Laus Deo Semper, praise to God always. And so Hopkins begins, glory be to God for dapple things. At the end, beauty is past change. So all the work here at the retreat house is to give God glory. All the work here is to make sure that God is praised and thanks for all the work he has done for us and is doing. Pope Francis had just a one-liner. He said, turn to my exhortation, The Joy of the Gospel, section 24, and share with the people this one line. The Eucharist, although it is a fulfillment of sacramental life, is not a prize for the perfect, but a powerful medicine and nourishment for the weak. Everyone who comes to the store at the retreat house, all of us here, are struggling pilgrims. We are weak, we are imperfect, we need God's grace. In fact, this retreat house is a field hospital. That's what he calls a church. It's a field hospital. We come here to be healed and strengthened and refreshed on the journey. Today in the two readings, St. Paul speaks about God's love. I pray that the inner spirit might be strengthened within you. In the gospel, it's all about love, receiving and giving the gift away. So I want to thank the Jesuits for those words of advice, for St. Ignatius and George Manley Hopkins and St. Francis. But as I finished my calls, the phone rang just before I went to bed, and it was Edgar Allan Poe. I couldn't believe it. And he died in 1849. And I said, "Hi, Edgar." He said, "I hear you going to the Reed House tomorrow." "I am." He said, "Did you know that I was walking past a Jesuit university back in the 1800s, and the bells were ringing at 6, at noon at 6. I didn't know what that was. I'm not a religious person. But they told me about this devotion the Catholics have called the Angelus, that in 3 minutes, 3 times a day, they review their whole spiritual life, God's initiative, Mary's response, the Incarnation, the Paschal Mystery." Then he said, I ran home to my word processor and began to type. "At morn, at noon, at twilight dim, Maria, thou hast heard my hymn. In joy and woe and good and ill, Mother of God, be with me still. When the hours flew brightly by and not a cloud obscured the sky, my soul, that did your truant be, thy grace did guide to thine and thee. Now when storms of fate overcast darkly my present and my past, let my future radiant shine with sweet hopes of thee and thine." Edgar Allan Poe wrote that. He should be canonized for that. He'll be taking collection later on for that cause. And not just a poem, it was a prayer. "At morn, at noon, at twilight dim, Maria, thou hast heard my hymn." So we want to thank Mary. She only did 2 things in her life. She listened and she loved. Only 2 things are required at this retreat house: to listen to God's command and to be loving people.